What if we dumped our trash into volcanoes? Imagine standing at the rim of a smoldering volcano, the molten lava below churning with unimaginable heat and energy. The thought might occur to you, what if we could use this incredible natural furnace to dispose of our ever-growing mountains of trash? At first glance, it seems like a perfect solution, utterly efficient, dramatically effective, as if the Earth itself could swallow our waste and erase our environmental woes. But beneath this alluring idea lies a complex reality, shaped by the nature of volcanoes, the composition of our waste, environmental risks, and the intricate balance of the planet we call home. To truly understand the implications of dumping our trash into volcanoes, let's start by examining the scale and nature of the problem at hand. Every year, humanity generates billions of tons of solid waste. This includes household garbage, industrial debris, hazardous chemical byproducts, and the ever-present plastic that has infiltrated every corner of the natural world. Managing this waste is a colossal challenge. Landfills grow ever taller. Recycling, while beneficial, can only do so much. Incineration releases pollutants, and illegal dumping pollutes both land and sea. With these mounting problems, the search for innovative, sometimes extreme solutions is almost inevitable. So why not turn to one of nature's most powerful forces, the volcano? After all, with lava reaching temperatures from 700 to 1,200 degrees Celsius, could this roaring furnace not simply melt down our waste, vaporize it, and turn our refuse into nothing more than smoke and gas? It seems plausible until we take a closer look at how volcanoes operate, what trash is made of, and the lasting effects our actions can produce. Volcanoes are complex geological formations that represent weaknesses in the Earth's crust, areas where molten rock from deep within the planet bursts forth to the surface. There are many types: shield volcanoes, with their broad, gentle slopes, stratovolcanoes, towering above the landscape with explosive potential, lava domes, cinder cones, and more. Each type behaves differently, and their lavas can vary widely in temperature, viscosity, gas content, and chemical makeup. Not every volcano accommodates a conveniently bubbling lava lake just waiting to receive truckloads of refuse. In fact, only a handful of active volcanoes in the world have persistent, accessible lava lakes, such as Erta Ale in Ethiopia or Nyiragongo in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But let's imagine, for the sake of argument, that access was less of a concern, and we could somehow deliver our trash safely to the edge of an active, open lava lake. What happens when something, anything, falls into that molten inferno? The immediate expectation is complete combustion or incineration, utter destruction. Glass and metals might melt, plastics might burn, and organic matter, such as food or yard waste, would carbonize and disappear. But is it really that simple? The reality is more nuanced. Not all waste is the same. Organic material will indeed burn up, converted into carbon dioxide, water vapor, and ash. Some plastics and synthetic materials melt and combust, giving off various gases, some of which are toxic. Metals may melt, but not all will vaporize. Some may just sink and solidify at the bottom of the lava lake. And then there are hazardous materials, chemicals, electronics containing heavy metals, batteries, and radioactive substances. These items, if burned, can release a cocktail of poisonous fumes, be it dioxins, furans, heavy metal vapors, or other persistent organic pollutants. Burning trash in a volcano is, in essence, a form of open-air incineration, albeit at higher temperatures and in a more spectacular setting. Incinerators are carefully controlled to minimize the release of harmful substances into the environment. They use filters, scrubbers, and careful monitoring to capture dioxins and other byproducts. Even with these precautions, incineration is controversial. In contrast, volcanoes have none of these controls. Any smoke, gas, or airborne particles generated by the burning waste would be lofted directly into the atmosphere, potentially traveling far and wide, depending on the wind and weather. Toxic gases could pose immediate risks to people and wildlife living near the volcano, especially in communities downwind. Some volcanic plumes already contain dangerous chemicals, sulfur dioxide, hydrochloric acid, fluorine, and more. Adding to this natural chemical soup with human-made pollutants is likely to have serious health and environmental impacts. Beyond the direct release of pollution, there are further practical problems. Volcanic eruptions are unpredictable and dangerous. Getting trash to an active volcano would be a logistical nightmare, not to mention hazardous to the truck drivers, workers, engineers, or anyone involved. Roads and infrastructure are fragile or non-existent around many volcanoes. During eruptions, ash clouds could ground operations and bury equipment. The tremendous heat near the rim would destroy machinery, corrode metals, and endanger lives. Suppose, however, that we could somehow automate the process, perhaps with drones or remotely operated vehicles, sidestepping some of the risk. Even then, the sheer volume of human trash makes the whole endeavor almost futile. Few volcanoes are accessible or stable enough to host large-scale dumping over extended periods, and their lava lakes are often small, the width of a football field or less. Trying to dispose of even a fraction of the world's waste in this way would quickly overwhelm any given volcano. Additionally, by introducing piles of cold, solid material into the molten rock, we risk cooling or crusting over the lava lake, disrupting the natural flow, and possibly even triggering unintended geological consequences. Large infusions of foreign material into a volcano could cause new fractures in the rock, destabilize the volcano's plumbing, or change the way gases escape from the magma. In some cases, the introduction of waste, especially materials that might contain water or chemical compounds, could trigger steam explosions or chain reactions that make eruptions more likely or more violent. Consider the environmental impacts once more. Every piece of trash dumped into a volcano represents a lost opportunity for recycling or recovery. Metals, plastics, glass, and some organics can be reprocessed and sent back into productive use, reducing the need to mine new raw materials and decreasing our environmental footprint. Burning or melting these materials not only wastes the resources, but also, as described, releases pollutants into the air. Recycling facilities can be situated near population centers, handle high volumes, and operate with far more control than a volcano ever could. On the other hand, some might argue that volcanoes themselves emit massive amounts of gases. Surely, anything we throw in is negligible compared to the volcano's own pollution. After all, one large eruptive event can release millions of tons of ash, sulfur dioxide, and carbon dioxide in a matter of days. However, this is not a sound justification for making things worse. Natural volcanic gases are indeed significant on a global scale, but human pollution is cumulative and persistent. The challenge is to reduce our footprint, not to exploit natural disasters or geological phenomena as an excuse for additional harm. There are deeper ethical and philosophical questions as well. The notion of out of sight, out of mind has plagued waste disposal practices for centuries. Oceans, forests, deserts, remote landfills. Humans have hidden their refuse wherever possible, often at dire cost to local environments and future generations. Using volcanoes as trash bins perpetuates this short-sighted thinking. Instead of addressing the root causes, overconsumption, inefficient manufacturing, toxic product design, and lack of investment in waste management infrastructure, it proposes a dramatic and damaging shortcut. Furthermore, volcanoes are unique geological features, often surrounded by ecologically rich and culturally significant regions. Many indigenous communities live near volcanoes and have deep spiritual connections to them. Geologists and environmentalists recognize the scientific importance of studying these dynamic systems. Turning them into glorified incinerators is not only dangerous and impractical, but also deeply disrespectful to the people and species that depend on them. Nevertheless, the idea of harnessing extreme natural forces for human ends is not without precedent. For decades, people have sought ways to sink carbon deep into the earth, store hazardous waste in abandoned mines, or disperse pollutants in the upper atmosphere. Some have even proposed seeding volcanoes with specific chemicals to deliberately influence eruptions, a risky pursuit fraught with uncertainty. Each of these interventions must be weighed against the complexity of Earth systems, the irreversibility of some changes, and the risk of unintended consequences. It's worth considering that nature, for all its violence and drama, is not a blank slate awaiting human intervention. Volcanoes shape continents, build islands, fertilize soil, and even, in the case of deep-sea hydrothermal vents, create entirely new ecosystems. Dumping human trash into these systems disrupts not only surface environments, but, potentially, the workings of the planet itself. So, if dumping our trash in volcanoes is out of the question, what are the better alternatives? First, there is the redesign of products and packaging. By shifting toward materials that are biodegradable, recyclable, and less toxic, we start to change the waste stream at its source. Reducing single-use plastics, engineering electronics for easy disassembly, and moving towards circular economies are all ways to reduce the pressure on landfills and incinerators. Developing new markets for recycled goods, incentivizing the return and reprocessing of materials, and encouraging manufacturers to take responsibility for their products at end of life will have a far greater impact than any volcano-based solution. Second, investing in advanced recycling and reclamation technologies can drastically reduce the number of materials that need to be buried, burnt, or otherwise disposed of. Chemical recycling, which breaks down plastics into their basic building blocks, composting on industrial scales for organics, and the recovery of rare earth metals from electronics all contribute to closing the loop on waste. Third, improving waste management infrastructure worldwide, especially in rapidly growing cities and developing countries, will ensure that waste is collected, sorted, and processed safely and efficiently. Increased public awareness, better incentives for sorting and recycling, and robust enforcement against illegal dumping are fundamental steps. Finally, innovative uses of safe waste-to-energy systems can help reduce the burden of non-recyclable materials, while also recapturing some of the energy locked up in trash. These facilities, unlike volcanoes, can be tightly controlled, with emission scrubbers, filters, and real-time monitoring to keep pollution to a minimum. Returning to the fantastical scenario of volcanoes as trash disposal units, it's natural to be attracted by their power and finality. Yet true solutions to human waste demand not theatrical spectacles, but careful, science-based action. We must resist the temptation to outsource our accountability to the wild forces of the planet, and instead embrace innovation, stewardship, and responsibility at every level. Imagine a world where instead of hidden landfills or burning craters, our cities pulse with advanced recycling centers, where waste is minimized by smart design, where organic trash becomes rich compost, and faded electronics are mined for rare elements rather than abandoned by the millions. This is the future we should strive for. A future where volcanoes remain marvels of geology and biology, not sacrificial sites for our disposable culture. Stepping back, there are still lessons to be learned from volcanoes, even if they can't become our refuse dumps. In studying their eruptions, flows, and emissions, scientists gain insight into the dynamics of Earth's interior, the chemistry of the atmosphere, and the history of the planet. Volcanic ash, while devastating in the short term, can enrich soils and create fertile regions over time. The danger and energy of volcanoes remind us of both the planet's unpredictability and its creative force. Yet, we must recognize the limits of what we should ask from the Earth. Nature's extremes are not tools to be wielded lightly. Instead, perhaps, volcanoes should teach us humility, reminding us that for every challenge humanity creates, the best solutions require ingenuity, respect for the environment, and commitment to a better future. In the end, the idea of dumping our trash into volcanoes captures the imagination, blending dreams of effortless disposal with awe at the power of nature. But the practical, environmental, and ethical realities swiftly bring us back to Earth. The story of human waste is not a tale of vanishing into fire, but of transformation, changing how we produce, use, and value the materials of our lives. Only then can we hope to break free from the cycle of trash, not by casting it into the flames, but by forging a world where waste itself becomes a relic of the past. Thank you for watching the video. What do you think about today's topic? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and share the video to support the channel. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.